Yeah. Yeah. No, let me know.
It's fun.
What was
It's
that, Jeff?
fun to do the way we do it, but when you get too busy, it's not fun.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be not fun.
Yep. Yep. What were you saying, Deb?
I was gonna say, the days that you think that it's gonna run like crazy and you go out there
Yeah.
and you check and there's nothing there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I got so many people telling me, "Oh, it's done, it's done." I'm like, it's way too early for it to be done. We still got
You
there's
know,
quite a bit of snow in the woods.
Yeah.
you said it, Josh. When there's still snow on the ground, it's hard to get a good run. When
Yep.
Yeah.
that snow starts leaving, and you get that below freezing up to 40 degrees by noon, that's when it runs.
Yep.
You know, you
And last night we were out there 4 or 5 o'clock, and it looked like it was just kind of starting to run. It was right before that snow was coming in, and
Yeah.
it was 40 degrees. You know, if you can get 40 degrees on a sunny day, it'll run earlier. But you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
And you leave them out until the trees start to bud. And when they start to bud,
Yeah.
you pull the taps.
Yeah. We're along.
They always
Although
say
I cut a few popple trees, and
Yep.
some of those popples are really popping out.
they
Oh,
say
yeah.
when you hear the frogs, that's the end
Yeah.
of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we got a ways. There's still ice in the swamps.
There's still ice in the pond. I drove over the edge of it because there's brush where I'm collecting, and those trees are really running that are right next to the swamp, but
Yep.
it's froze like a rock yet.
Yeah. We're still getting some stuff ironed out. I got to make sure that RO is running. That's my biggest fear is that thing ain't gonna, I'm worried about the deal because we haven't done nothing with it for 3-4 years. So, but everything else is up and going, cleaned up, ready to rock. So we'll see what happens.
The nice thing about it is, if you got something else going on, you can just walk away in weather like this and leave everything. As long as you keep emptying the bags and start up when you got time again.
Yeah, that's what it's kind of looking like this year. It's just going to be me and my older brother. So it's like, that's why we didn't want to put out all 300 and some, because we'll have storage to get us through the week, hopefully. And then we can work hard on the weekends, RO and evaporate and finish. So.
I got to keep track of the time. Oh, we got time. We got time.
Hey, Steve?
Yeah.
You had sent that volunteer driver info for so I'm thinking we would add that to the legislative update because there's a couple of active bills with that, if that works.
I got it. I got a little note to myself right there, legislative updates. So I don't quite understand how they're going to make that work, but if somebody above my pay grade can figure that out. Did any of the rest of you get a letter from a guy about a crash that killed somebody on Highway 70? Matthew Den?
No.
I'll drop it off at the office.
Which side of 61?
On it was, I remember the crash. It was New Year's Day a few years ago. Killed a man and his wife.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and the guy that
hit
did
by
it
a drunk driver.
Yeah. Who sent you the letter?
A guy that was involved, a third car involved in that crash. And he's just concerned about the amount of patrolling the sheriff does on that road. And
yeah, that was just to the east, about a mile or so?
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of by Schultz's house there.
Yep.
You know, when somebody's looking for something, of course, he's driven by and seen 2 sheriff deputies sitting in the city of Rock Creek parking lot.
Yep.
Thinks they should be out patrolling the road. Well, you don't know if that's a shift change, if that's they're uploading the computer, you know.
Yep.
They probably aren't 2 cops sitting there watching the 4-way stop like he thinks they are.
Yep.
So in our bond refinance, that 200 and some thousand, was it both for, is it just for solid waste or it can be for household hazardous waste? And
I think
Is
it can
this-
be both. It's probably specified in the bond as solid waste as a,
Yeah.
as a department.
so, and we earmarked it as a board for that, or is it part of the
It's-
agreement in the refinance?
Yep, it's part of the bond documents.
Part of the,
There's like 5 specific uses that were called out.
Right, so it's kind of like our sales tax thing, we have to keep it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all. That's what I thought.
Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, I got an idea. We just got to find the right place. Those buildings that when they build out an oil field, they got those. They transport them on semis. They
Mhm.
lock a couple together. They're like a self-contained office building,
Yeah,
kind of. And they got a onboard water and onboard bathrooms. They're pretty nice. I was in one. Pretty nice. Be nice to. I don't know where they get those.
you know, do you remember was it the 2012 flood where FEMA gave us those trailers they used for temporary and they went to
Yeah.
counties for the place?
But
So,
they were
there
just
probably
camper.
is.
They were just camper trailers.
I know,
Yeah.
I know that's different, but I think that temporary building thing, even in the private, I wonder if there's a way we'd have to probably buy.
Probably what?
I think I know where you're going with that. You know, just a building that can be moved if we change our mind type thing.
Yeah, and because it's self-contained, you don't have
Yeah.
to worry about
Yeah.
subsurface moisture and stuff.
Yeah. I wonder if you'd have to have a contract with a porta potty guy or something then. Probably.
Yeah. Which probably wouldn't need to happen very often.
No, and we'd have to do that anyway.
Right.
It's a good idea when you think about it. Worth looking into anyway.
Somebody must know somebody that moved those.
Hey, I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy. Somebody always knows a guy. You gotta know.
Yeah, I know a
guy. Knows a guy. Hi, JJ.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. You?
Good.
Good.
You still down there?
Hey,
Yes, I am. Started,
Good for you.
I started helping a neighbor put a roof on his house, so I'm gonna get that done and then head home.
Oh, well, stay a little while longer. The weather's not quite straightened out yet.
All right.
hey, JJ, do you want to take facility when we get there?
Yeah, I can. That was the 3rd.
Okay.
Yep, got it.
Hi, Reese.
Hi, Reese. Hi, Terry. Jeff. Mark. Denise. Becky. Okay. Well, it's almost 10. It is 10. This meeting will be in person via WebEx, phone conference, and live streamed on the internet. No more than 2 county commissioners will be present in the meeting room. Public may join the meeting via WebEx in person at the meeting room or watch the live stream. If joining in person, the total number of persons, including commissioners, cannot exceed 10, and social distancing of at least 6 feet will be in effect. The governor of the state of Minnesota has issued Executive Order 20-01 declaring a peacetime emergency and coordinating Minnesota's strategy to protect Minnesotans from COVID-19. On March 24th, 2020, the Pine County Board of Commissioners declared a local emergency for Pine County. Based on these conditions, the chair of the Pine County Board of Commissioners has determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statute 13D.021 Subdivision 1 have been met, and it is not practical or prudent for members of the county board to meet in person, all members of the county board. The public is invited to join the meeting via person or remotely. We will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which it stands, one
under
nation,
God,
under
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chair, there's no public in the building here.
You're muted, Steve.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
Called the meeting to order. We said the pledge. Public forum. Does anybody from the public wish to speak? I did hear there is no public at the meeting room.
No public here, all right.
Okay. Not seeing anybody on the call. We'll move on to the agenda. I know we do have some additions. David, do you want to give us those?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the additions, I'll review the additions, but I'll just note that they are posted on the website as well if anyone is watching and wants to look at the additions. To the commissioner updates, if we could add a Second Amendment discussion. I know some commissioners have received requests from some constituents to discuss that issue. On revisions, the upcoming meetings, the Snake River Watershed Management Board and Snake River Watershed Policy Committee meeting scheduled for March 22nd are both canceled. And then the Lower St. Croix Comprehensive Watershed Policy meeting is March 22nd at 4 p.m. The Personnel Committee report, if I could revise that a little bit, we did have an employee resign last Friday, which changes the staffing recommendation. And so if we could add that update to change those from temporary to regular status to fill that vacancy. And then additional information on the Personnel Committee report. The agenda request discussed the temporary employee policy and the performance reviews, but did not include the actual red line policy document. So the red line is provided as additional information. And then legislative update, if we could just be sure to talk about the volunteer driver piece. And there is some legislation that would change the tax status of the reimbursements that volunteer drivers get. And I know the board has had this issue discussed last legislative session as well.
Any other additions, corrections? If not, we'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Lefgren moves.
Morrow second.
A motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Is there any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to approve the minutes of the March 2nd County Board meeting and summary for publication.
Mr. Ludwig moves.
Lefgren will second.
Got a motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Debbie, will you call the roll?
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham. District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the minutes of board reports and correspondence. The Pine County Housing Redevelopment Authority, HRA, from December 30th, 2020 and January 27th, 2021, and the Pine County Land Surveyor Monthly Report, February 21.
So moved, Ludwig.
Morrow second.
Got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Moore. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Commissioner Ludwig, are we any closer to appointing the replacement for,
Yeah.
Ms. Stockton?
Yes. We will do that today.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions, discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. You've had that in front of you for a few days. Is there any questions on it? If you don't have any, we'll look for a motion.
I so move, Lefgren.
Morrow second.
Got a motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Is there any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
That'll move us forward to the regular agenda. The first up is the committee facilities committee report.
Okay. Well, we met on the 3rd. And give me 1 second. Okay. The courthouse talked about the cameras and projectors. There's 65 to 75,000 in the technology budget to cover that. Jump in if you think I got something wrong here, of course, or you, Matt. There's some talk about a court training room that the court system wanted a room for some training. Kelly spoke of the grant money There's 180,000 in the fund for solid waste. Caleb had spoke about the household hazardous waste. One thing that I put a little asterisk by that I thought was a great idea is about the emergency eye wash station. Any kind of safety station or anything there, I think would be a great idea, not only for the employees, but if something were to happen with any customers that come in. Very important. And something also I thought that was interesting is even though the county had sent out so many mailers, promoting this and the recycling, with Caleb's thought was that many people still didn't know yet of the recycling programs. So I don't know if social media is used or what else can be done to get some promotional items going out there. Or, more talk about the buildings, and before the meeting, I heard you guys were chatting a little bit about it. Yeah, I agree with Steve. I think it's a great idea. Check into those portable buildings. North Dakota is pretty close. I actually know a gentleman that works over there on some of the mining facilities or the drilling facilities for drilling. I could reach out to him and see if there's any information on those buildings, whether it could be leased or bought used, or pricing, availability. We talked about a skid steer there. Brought up the idea that maybe Connex could be used for now to get that skid steer parked inside, keep it safe. And then Matt and we kind of mentioned a little bit about before we start making any big decisions or anything, it'd be nice to get out there and walk those properties, check them out, and actually see. I haven't seen them, and Matt, I don't know if exactly how much of them that you've seen. I visited one in Willow, and I think it's great. I dropped off my stuff there, but I guess I wasn't looking at it in relation to buildings and everything else. So hopefully we can get out there when the weather warms up and the ground thaws, and we can walk the properties. And then I have here the next meeting's April 7th. So that's my notes I had. Matt, is there anything you want to add?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Waldham, if I could add a little more information on the court remodel. Luann has been reaching out as recently as this morning to see if the county would agree to do an MOU with the court to move that project along. And so County Attorney Frederickson is going to be working on that. And our goal would be to get that to the next board meeting on April 6th, which is before the next facility committee meeting. And it's time sensitive because the court has a deadline of June 30th, which is the end of the state fiscal year, to get the project done. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that we'll circulate that to the facility committee as soon as Reese has a draft out. But our initial intent will be to go right to the next board meeting and not wait for the facility committee meeting.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I follow up with Dave there. Question. So it was my understanding, was the court going to pay for that and we're just going to manage it, or?
Yes, yep. So the court's intent is that they would pay for it, but since it's our building, they're asking that we have a formal MOU, and that MOU would, in essence, appoint Luann as the project manager on behalf of the county to do that. And then we're thinking that we would pay the bills to the contractors, and then the state would reimburse the county.
And the part he's talking about is a storage room that's going to be remodeled to a training room. So it's not that big of a project.
Sounds good. JJ, just one thing. I was between doing something last week, and I thought, well, I got a little time. I'm going to swing into the recycle center, and I don't know if I hit it on the peak day or what, but I wasn't there more than a few minutes, and there were 4 cars when I got there, and 2 more came as I was leaving. And I don't know, I can't remember how many dumpsters are there, but the cardboard dumpsters really get hit. And there were 2 dumpsters full of milk jugs and stuff that were full. And I noticed the Connex box with the mattresses looked like it didn't have much room left in it. So I don't know. You know, in Willow River, they get a better count because people are bringing their garbage too. And I don't think so many do at the south. They're mostly bringing recycling. So I don't know if we should have them have a little clicker counter or something to kind of see what we're getting. I don't know. We'll know once it's open. Now we can start getting some weights, and so we can kind of compare weight to what we had before. So
Yeah,
we'll see. It was very busy the day I was there.
Yeah, or maybe even Mark could get one of those counters that they use on the highway. You know, you put that hose across, put it on the inside of the gate to get that way you're not so dependent on somebody, you know, not hitting the clicker or hitting it twice, or to get an actual like a traffic count. Maybe it'd be a great idea.
Yeah, maybe that would work. Yeah, the other I did call Caleb and Kelly to tell them, you know, it looked like it's really getting used. One of the things we did talk about is some of the things that we're finding out Phase did without us really knowing it. I've been contacted by a large farmer who Phase, I never knew that, but they used to come right to his farm and pick up cardboard mostly. And charge them a very nominal fee, and they'd pick up like a whole, I don't know, great big tote full of it. So we'll work through those issues, and we want to make it convenient for people. And I mean, they can, if there's a skid steer there and they've got a skid steer on the farm, obviously they could load it up on a flatbed, bring it there and get it offloaded. It's not a big deal for them, but we'll work through those issues. So, Caleb, do you have anything, as long as we're talking about it, you want to add?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just as a reminder, at that Pine City site, we have a 2-year agreement with the city. So if we're going to do something, or it goes back to Pine City. That was the deal we had with them. So I just want all the other commissioners to know that.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ludwig, so the deal is, excuse me, we agreed to operate the brush site for at least 2 years.
Yeah.
And if we fail to operate the brush site, they have an opportunity to take the property back.
And
That's right.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering if it was going to be an issue doing the brush pile, and the answer was no.
No, apparently Caleb has talked to Carlson Timber, and they might, it looks like they might have an opportunity to come in there and chip that stuff and haul it away at no cost to the county. So that'd be awesome.
It's being explored. It looks like for the first go, we might need to burn it.
Okay.
I'm still hopeful, but conditions gotta be right for the marketplace and for their equipment needs and all that.
Makes sense.
Good. Anything, I would prefer that we could chip it and get rid of it instead of burning it.
That's always an option at a cost.
Yep.
Guess,
yep, I understand.
Yeah.
Any more questions on facilities? I don't believe we need any action. Thank you, guys. Plenty to do on that committee. Personnel committee.
Ludwig will take that, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
We met on March 8th, and following things were discussed. In the Sheriff's Office dispatch, we ratified the termination of probationary part-time dispatcher Marcus Hamilton Gustafson effective February 23rd, 2021, and request backfill the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. In Health and Human Services, we acknowledge the resignation of social worker Jessica Zerbis effective February 19th, 2021, and request the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. Acknowledge the retirement of eligibility worker Sue Bleckinger effective May 7th, 2021. And auditor treasurer clerk and payroll approve the regrade of treasurer clerk payroll position from 170 grade 5 to a 210 grade 6 due to the increase in duties and classifications change from field administrative support to administrative, and update the job description reflecting that change. Inland services, household hazardous waste, approve the hazardous waste attendant job description at grade 1, starting salary $15.28 per hour. Authorize hiring of 2 part-time household hazardous waste attendant positions. Then we have with the additions and that correction, it's going to change that part B to the acknowledge the resignation of Joy Hicks, the zoning and solid waste technician, effective March 26, 2021, and authorize the backfill of the position and any subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. And that's a grade 7 with wage $20.04 per hour. And I want to make sure I have this right because we're moving somebody up. We're not adding, right? We're just moving. So that covers that. Yes, that'll cover that. Okay. Administrative. In administration, we had a long discussion and approved the revised policies for the following. And it's travel. Section 12 is travel, temporary employees, and performance reviews. And I think I'll have Administrator Minky cover that part in that red line version of our packet.
Right, thank you. And so the section 12, the review was really initiated because it specifically excluded health and human services employees in the language, but in practice, we have been using it for all employees. So we started to update the policy for that reason. And a couple of clarifications on the vehicle usage. We just clarified that department heads may authorize county vehicles. On the expense reimbursement, we clarified that the forms are provided by the auditors and expenses are submitted to the auditor for reimbursement. There used to be a provision in section 12.8.2.9 with a special reimbursement for meals for county board meetings. So we deleted that, thinking that the reimbursement policy for meals should be the reimbursement policy for meals, not special to county board meetings. On the county-owned vehicle usage, that does make department heads having authority for take-home vehicles. We added a note to accept clients or other business use or passengers for business use so that we're, if someone in the scope of their employment has to transport somebody, the policy allows that. I believe those are all of the significant changes in the vehicle usage, expense reimbursement, and travel policy. Are there any questions on that piece or want any more information? And maybe one more note. The previous policy included elected officials and board members, committee members. We wrote them out of the policy. If you go back to the full policy manual, in the definition section, we exclude elected officials. And so we wanted to keep this piece consistent with that. And those reimbursements and mileage are covered in the annual resolution that the county board adopts in December. If there are no questions on that section, on the temporary employee policy 2.45, this came up obviously in preparing for the personnel committee and the potential employee leave of absence that we wanted to do a temporary fill. most of the temporary employee that's proposed to be struck out really is quoting or copying the Minnesota Public Labor Relations Act and some collective bargaining agreement language with regards to whether they're a public employee or not. And after review, it seems like if we take all of that out, it still applies, but we don't have to restate it in the definition of temporary employee. So the new definition of temporary employee would simply mean an employee hired for a specific duration or a specific event. And then temporary employees are not eligible for county benefits with the added language unless required by law. And so there might be a collective bargaining agreement that would apply. There might be a federal or state law that applies, and we would follow that. And so we just wanted to add that note on the benefit piece. And then the current policy allows the administrator to hire for a period of up to 2 weeks. The change proposes to allow the administrator to hire for a period of up to 1 year. And so in looking back, we have found that 2 weeks is such a short duration that we're always bringing the request forward. So it's almost a meaningless provision. And so that's just for your consideration. If you wanted to delegate that, you could. Any questions on the temporary employee
It's not greater than 1 year though, right?
without county board approval?
Will there need to be changes in contracts for that?
I don't think so, because any temporary employees would have to be hired within the requirements of any collective bargaining agreement.
Okay,
So this would not supersede those.
that 1 year is a benefit.
Yeah. So the last policy proposed for revisions is 4.6 on performance reviews. There was just a lot of language in there. And when distilling it down, I think our goal is that supervisors shall formally review the performance of their employees at least once per year, and then generally at the anniversary. And then probationary employees shall be reviewed regularly throughout the term of their probationary period. And so it really was just to kind of clarify and take out what seemed like language that wasn't necessarily needed or helpful with regard to who signs, when they sign. So if there are no questions on that, that will conclude my report.
David, the one question I have on the performance reviews, I know that 1 year anniversary rolls around really, really fast. And if you have a lot of employees to review, sometimes it's easy to get behind. Do we have a good reminder system so people, because I believe every employee deserves to be reviewed periodically. And if 1 year is our time limit, do we have a good system, or does every department head come up with their own system?
I think the answer to both of your questions is yes. So
Okay.
I think each department has a system that they use, right? Because it works for them. We also have with Kronos a system that will remind you of anniversary dates. And so there is that technology to help as well.
Thank you.
And I know our department heads and supervisors put a lot of time and effort into these reviews because there are a lot of them, and we do believe that people deserve to be evaluated at least once a year.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? One of the personnel committee members want to make a motion to approve?
I will move, Ludwig will move it.
Moral second.
Now, is there any other discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldam.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lofgren.
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the appointment of chief deputy. Jeff, are you going to take that? I saw you on, I thought.
I am here.
All right.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I am looking for approval of the appointment of Scott Grice as the chief deputy, effective May 24th, and with a starting salary of $90,000. So Scott's been here quite a while, done a lot of things on there, as you can see on the request there. He's been a good asset, and I think he'll do well in this position for him.
Thank you. I believe we need approval from the board for this, so we need a motion.
Well, this is Lovegren, and I really, I appreciate your choice. I think Scott would make a very good chief deputy, and so I will make that motion.
Ludwig will second.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second. Motion by Lovegren, second by Ludwig. Is there any discussion, questions? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lofgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll move on to Housing Redevelopment Authority, the HRA Commissioner vacancy.
Yeah, so I was working, I had a few candidates that we were working with to try to get appointed, and we ended up with Claudia Bloom. She lives in Shengwatana Township. And in your packet there, you got a list of all the stuff she's done, and I had a very, very nice conversation with her. I think Kelly did as well. And she's obviously very qualified, very excited to work with the county, and very honored that we considered her. So I think she's going to bring a different level of expertise to this that hopefully will promote the HRA a little bit and take it to the next level that we're looking for. So I will make the motion to appoint Claudia Bloom to fill the HRA vacancy. Resolution 2020-68.
Ludwig will second.
We've got a motion by Moore, seconded by Ludwig. Is there any discussion?
I might have missed it, Mr. Chair, but does she have all the information? Like, does Tammy know, and has that contact data been moved back and forth?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ludwig, I will let Tammy know
Okay.
as soon as the appointment is official. And then I have sent Claudia some information on the HRA, previous minutes, et cetera.
Yeah, there's a meeting next week, so.
Okay, hearing none, no more anyway. The clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lofgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just note that because this was a vacancy, that the next regular appointment is scheduled for October, and that would be District 3 Commissioner Lovegren that would have the recommendation on that. In October is when that would be completed.
Okay.
So start looking, Terry.
I know, I was looking at this list that she's done, and I'm thinking, wow, how do you?
Holy
how do you
bucket,
follow
we
that?
got a lot of talent living in our county.
I
Yep.
would say start thinking about it, because I know another one is sick right now and having surgery today, so I don't know. Maybe she'll be fine, but.
Okay, we'll move on to the Greater Minnesota Recycling and Composting Grant.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. In past conversations with the county board, there's been expressed interest in a household hazardous waste facility to serve the northern portion of Pine County. At one point, there was bond funding approved at $186,000 to support construction of solid waste facilities to improve our programming. And a building in northern Pine County was contemplated for that funding. So a grant program came through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency to cover 75% of the cost of a project that would improve recycling collection systems in rural Minnesota. So we put in a request to cover the cost of building an HHW. One of the things that we've collected data on, where people are coming from when they come to our facility down in Pine City, and that suggests about 15% of the participants are from Sandstone northward, while that area represents about 42% of the population. So we've done some, collection events, like one-day collection events on the north end of the county, and we've had good response. We did a survey when we first started the North Pine Transfer Station. We had residents could fill it out, and HHW was one of the things they listed as having better access to that would be of interest to folks. So we've put forward the grant request. It's about, I don't know, where's that number? It is around a $240,000 project total, 75% of which to be covered by the state. So as part of that process, the board is to adopt a resolution expressing their commitment to the project, and as well as their commitment to that match requirement. And we're in the fortunate position to have kind of that funding dedicated already that could serve as match. The one other thing, I put it in the application, I put it with some flexibility that either Sandstone or Willow River could be considered, so that whatever would make most sense to the northern folks, that we could build it to suit, but also that it would be co-located with an existing solid waste facility for better more efficient management and staffing, and also trip planning for all the residents. You bring in your recycling. Oh, there's a paint can. Let's bring that at the same shot just to get it off the shelf. It becomes less of a chore when you can just kind of one-stop shop it. That's what I've got.
Good. Any questions on that? If we want to move ahead, we do have a resolution.
I have one, Mr. Chair. Caleb, you said 240,000, but on this sheet, it says 178,000.
Yes, thank you. I have the budget in front of me now. I was quickly flipping through my windows trying to find that budget. Yeah, it's 178 of state funds, and then the remaining balance being local match. I think that's $61,000.
Okay.
Dollars for the local match.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe we can find 2 of those buildings, JJ.
2 for 1 set.
Get a deal on them.
Buy in bulk.
We're looking for a motion to go ahead with this grant application.
Did Terry? Okay, Terry made a motion.
Lovegren made a motion. And more seconds. Any discussion, questions? If not, clerk call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham. District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the probation out-of-home placement report. Terry?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, I'm going to present our annual out-of-home placement report for the probation department. This first slide has 4 different areas. Here in the upper left, we talk about how we make placement decisions based on all those bulleted factors that we keep in mind. We do use a risk assessment instrument, it's a validated risk tool. It's done at the first court hearing to determine whether or not a juvenile should remain in detention or be released. So, our work is evidence-based. It's not done based on a, gut reaction by a probation officer or a county attorney. There's science behind it. So placement reduction strategies, all those bulleted items are different things that we try to do and look at doing prior to recommending that a child be placed out of home. So quite an extensive list. Last year, we were under budgeted by $203,000. Obviously, COVID played a big piece in that. Good work as well by the agents, but certainly COVID was part of that. The budget busters, which we consider $20,000 or more spent on a particular juvenile, we had 3 of them this year. I'll talk about them a little bit. And the commissioner's district is off to the right. Some of the highlights on the bottom here, if you look at commonality, this is really what we spend a lot of our time with a lot of our juveniles, kids with mental health diagnoses, family instability or inability to address issues, drug use, trauma history, and then, the way the school to prison pipeline starts in that habitual truancy or poor academic progress. And so the top child, violation of probation 7 times with a trauma history and mental health diagnoses. So while the offense, you could say, well, obstructing legal process, disorderly conduct, that's not a high crime, and you'd be right, but it's a very high needs child. The second one there in the middle, we've since transferred that case to Mille Lacs County, but chronic probation violations, serious drug use, runaway, and new offenses. And then the third one, we've been working with this child for quite some time. Again, started out by habitual truancy, had a short-term placement of 30 days, did well there. Has been in our evening reporting center post-placement. But again, still struggling with school and really doing anything consistently. So again, so I think the takeaway with these cases are, while they may not be serious crimes, relative to some others, they become high needs kids that Pine County does a good job of caring about and continuing to work with. Our budget busters did decrease from 6 to 3 this year. And these 3 kids represent 21% of our out-of-home placement budget. So, and so that kind of, tells a good story there, not so good story. Average cost of placement of these kids was $249 a day. And then on the bottom are the 3 places that we use probably more than others here in Pine County. Was half the number of 2019, lowest since probation started tracking these in 1996. Average length of placement, 47 days. Use of electronic monitoring as a detention alternative still is a big tool at our disposal, helps keep placements lower and it's a less restrictive alternative than not sending kids out of home. This next page talks about our placement types. DOC non-secure is the ones that have a higher demand and need. We continue to use the ones in a purple box here more than others. And again, these decisions are based on RAISE scores, the risk assessment instrument. And again, not just the gut of a probation officer, while certainly those things factor in the decision. We are using, again, science behind the decision. Placement expenditures, again, $185,000 this last year, down quite a bit from the year before. Our juvenile center, I've talked about this before. I won't go into this too much, but we were underutilized in the bed days. We contract for 352 days a year, and we only used 57 this last year. And so there becomes a bill in the reconciliation process that we paid. And it just kind of explains all that. Some of the impactors, again, member beds hit a COVID rock bottom. Non-members purchases were up due to COVID. A lot of juvenile centers have closed around the state. There's only about a handful left. So it becomes a valuable asset in terms of continuing to be part of that joint powers agreement. There was capital improvements in the camera control project done there as well. Our bed days this last year, again, 57, down from 227 the year before. Electronic monitoring, this is, we usually have pretty good numbers on this every year. We had 415 days of electronic monitoring use by juveniles in 2020. 13 kids for 415 days. If you look at the cost, it costs us $5,000 to put kids on electronic monitoring, but you save over $101,000. So if you look at from 2009 when that was implemented, it has saved the county over $1.5 million to put a kid on the monitor and keep them in the community. Evening Reporting Center, again, that's our grant. We were fortunate to find out that they were going to extend the grant by another year, really based on COVID and the inability really to spend some of the monies that go along with that grant. We have served 17 youth to date, 15 referred by probation, 2 by HHS. It's a pretty full group in there right now. Some of the highlights, again, it's been used as an intermediate sanction before we have to place a kid out of home. We have started in person just last night, and we're going to expand that to 2 days a week coming up. So it was good to see kids get a good meal and be back on site on the campus of East Central. We just hired a new director. He also works for Vision, so it's a good fit. And our youth counselor also is a EBD instructor at Hinckley Finlayson. So been able to make a lot of purchases, including Chromebooks for the kids. So they all have Chromebooks now. I know we just purchased a bunch of snowshoes as well. And so now that the kids can get out and kids are back on campus and some staff have been vaccinated, we're looking forward to being more active with these kids. Using funds to remove barriers and support youth success, gas vouchers and incentive for school attendance, funds for driver's ed. I'll talk a little bit more about that here. I'll actually do that right now. We have a young lady that's in our evening reporting center. Again, not in the programming part. I actually recommended that she go back just as a support network. She had a really good relationship with the 2 female staff. Really a young lady who's kind of raising herself in a lot of ways, really defiant teenager. She's had court orders requiring her to attend school, all these type of things, and limited success with any of them. But through the good work of the ERC staff, she's opened up and talked more about what's going on in her life. That's not something I could get out of her, and I'll be the first one to admit it. If I have plenty of weaknesses, and one of them is I'm accused of not being so warm and fuzzy at times. And when you have a couple of females that are able to engage with her, it really went a long way. What we did, knowing some underlying issues and the barriers, I recommended in her truancy review hearing one day, asked her if she would have interest in getting a driver's license. And she cried in court and was pleased that the judge actually cared enough that that would be something that we would be interested in doing. And because we have the evening reporting center line items, and we also have the community alternative line item in my budget, we're able to say, you know what, if you go to Empower Learning Center and you make some academic progress, we'll pay for you to get your driver's license. And her academic progress has just been unbelievable since that time. We've spent money in gas vouchers. She comes in twice a week, reports into probation. We give her a $20 gas voucher so she can get rides. So you take that barrier away from her to go to school. When you put all those things together, we're spending, less or equivalent to 1 day of placement cost by seeing a child become successful and keeping her in the community and getting some education. So I highlight that case. We're doing that with one of our ERC young men as well, or he wasn't ERC, he's graduated. He's one of my habitual truants. Because I think this is some of the stuff that Pine County does better than most places. When you're working sometimes in a larger county, in a larger agency, you become process driven, and it all becomes about, writing a report and going to court and doing the same thing the next day. Where in Pine County, you can take a step back and you can dig deeper with a child. The judge can dig deeper, and we can put our heads together through our PPST screening committee, and you really have a plan that may not work the first, second, third, or fifth time, but hopefully at the end of the day, you're going to see some progress. And if not, we know that we've went the extra mile for children. So I'm very proud about that. And finally, talked about a little bit about the community alternative budget. I think we spent maybe only about $1,000 in this last year because of COVID, but again, it's a line item created to fund a wide range of activities and services to provide intervention and prevention to reduce out-of-home placement. And so a lot of cultural activities for the cultural community coach was done there. I know a lot of kids helped the development and building the cultural campgrounds. And we've used this budget as well for changing gates to get some equine therapy and learning done. And so again, another example of maybe thinking outside the box and trying something different to support children. So that's all I have. So I'd open it up for questions if anybody has any.
I have one, Mr. Chair. Terry, with the schools opened up again, are you seeing more kids due to reporting, or is it the numbers staying kind of down where they had been with COVID?
Reporting to probation, you mean?
Right, or has there been more reporting on kids that are doing, more truancy again, or, they've been out of school for so long?
Yeah, the truancy is a tough one to grasp because we have a truancy subcommittee in the county, and we haven't met throughout COVID. And there's a hope, we have a children's cabinet meeting tomorrow, and that'll be one of the things that we bring forward. But there really hasn't been, filing of, I think I've had maybe 1 or 2 truancy cases that have started, new cases throughout the last year with COVID. So is that an accurate look of how kids are going to school or not? Probably not. It's probably underreported, but it kind of is what it is right now until schools are back in session here full time. But so I think the truancy problem is bigger than maybe we know at the moment. But I think once we get our truancy subcommittee back moving, we'll be able to put some things in place and start to get. The other thing too is our assistant county attorney has been out on maternity leave, and she comes back, I think, next week, and we'll be able to start to put a game plan together here for the fall. So I would expect that number to spike. How much, I'm not really sure at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Terry?
Thanks. Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
There's a graph that you used about third from the end, the East Central Regional Juvenile Center bed days used 1998 to 2000. And I know you and Reese and Becky and I have had significant conversation about our contract or joint powers with the Regional Juvenile Center, and that's being rewritten. This graph is so demonstrative of the issue that we're dealing with, and it should be a good issue, where we buy, in essence, through the JPA, 365 beds a year. So 1 day a year, and we guarantee that payment, and in exchange, they guarantee us a bed when we need it. That number made sense for the whole history, because we were always 300 or above. The last 3 years, our usage has declined precipitously. And, you know, whether this is a trend that's going to carry to the future or whether it's going to bounce back up post-COVID, I'm not sure, but I know when we have these good numbers, we end up writing out a check at the end of the year for a big number of unused beds, and that doesn't feel good. But in reality, the outcome is good. And so, Terry, I don't know if you have any updates on the negotiation process or how that structure may be changing, but I just wanted to make sure commissioners were aware of the good number. We still have a JPA that costs us some money.
Yes. We are working on it now. We just had a directors meeting about a week ago, and we have another one here at the beginning of April. We have one more year in the current JPA, so the reconciliation process will be the same. So if you underutilize your bed, you have to write that check based on the formula at the end of the year. You know, this year that was $80-some thousand, and so it does hurt. You know, you essentially, you can look at it, well, you do good work and you get penalized at the end of the year, but you are guaranteed that bed. You know, the two closest juvenile centers you'd even think about getting a spot in at the moment are Duluth and Bemidji. So if you didn't have a guaranteed spot, the sheriff's department would be traveling all around the state to lodge a kid. The reconciliation process in the new joint powers agreement was voted on at our last meeting, and that will be different. That will be basically, if we continue to own one bed, we would pay a 365, and that would be divided out amongst 12 months, and we would pay an invoice for 12 months, and then you would only pay more if you use more than those 365 days. So to me, that's a better way of doing things, and that's kind of what all the directors thought too, is, you know, it's for the smaller counties especially, it's less of a hit at the end of the year. And so we're in the recruiting process right now on some of those non-member beds, some of those consistent users, such as Benton County, trying to get them to come in to be members. The non-member rate will go up in a year, and so, but based on some of the current membership, we're at a 24-bed member divisor right now, and I think people have reported out that on what they're looking at doing, and some counties moving down to a half a bed or to one bed less. We're at 20.5, and so before we can gain new counties, we have to figure out about the shortfall of the 3.5 beds right there as well. So there's a lot of work to do in the next year here. But again, you can look at that a couple ways. It is a painful thing to do, to write that check at the end of the year. But I think conversely, transporting kids around the state when you're not guaranteed a bed can be problematic as well. Because if you look a couple of years ago, that 914 days, we had three EJJ cases that year. 2 of them were in secure placement for quite some time. And so all it takes is 1 or 2 kids, and that can spike in a hurry. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. I'm anxious to see some long-term data of these kids, you know, that were kept out of the system because of the hard work that your folks that everybody's doing to keep them out of the court system and make them productive citizens. I mean, that costs over time. If you just look at it from money, the savings of in and out of jail, of generational in and out of jail, the cost to society is astronomical, as you know. So I commend you for the work you guys are doing, and really some groundbreaking work, and hopefully we can turn this thing around in Pine County at least. Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Any other questions for Terry?
Thanks.
Not. We'll move on to the highway annual report. Mark?
No, we had a good year financially, got a lot of projects completed. Most of this information we got to submit to the state for reimbursement and accountability of our revenue and expenditures, but I think it's real good information for you as board members to be able to refer to. So hopefully you had a chance to page through that. Just to hit some of the highlights on pages 4 and 5 is our financial statement. You can see on our asset sheet, most of it is our state aid allotments and our cash on hand, and that's about $4.5 million. That can go up and down quite a bit. Kind of the nuts and the bolts of the whole report really is on page 5. That's our fund balance information. Good news. It's always fun to bring this report when things are going up. So our reserve for inventory was up about 150,000. Our reserve on our sales tax, so that's up about 20,000. So we got about $400,000 to carry into this year. Then our undesignated fund balance went up about 400,000 to about 965,000. So our total fund balance pretty close to 2 million, and so I feel real good about that. It's kind of where we want to be. Allows us to advance projects and cash flow things without kind of being a burden to the general fund. So that's good. David had to remind me that our revenues are going to go down this year from the state. So it wasn't as bad as we thought, but it still came in. We're going to lose about 850,000 in revenue. So we did plan for that. We do have a position in the engineering department we eliminated that was vacant. We cut back on some of our planned maintenance projects. We got, probably hold a position. If there's any openings, we'll hold them open for a while. So we can account for it. And what happens is that money, it's divided up into our construction account and our maintenance account. And so we're able to do all our projects this year. And I think we'll be able to do all our projects next year. It just kind of impacts us maybe down the road. And so if the sales tax revenues come back and we kind of get back to where we were, when we did our 5-year plan, then we'll be able to just keep going. But it's hard to say how quickly that's going to bounce back. Gas prices are going up now. And so I see in our parking lot, there ain't any more pickups. There's a lot of small cars out there now. So must be impacting a little bit. And so the less fuel that's purchased, obviously, the less sales tax that are collected.
And Mark,
Yep.
just to clarify, it's the gas tax, right? Not the local sales tax.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the gas tax, fuel tax, and everything that goes into that state fund. There's also some of the money on sales on new cars, and there's some lease money that goes into that too. So it's a combination of some different monies. But yeah, I'm sorry about that, Dave. The page 6 is our accounts receivable. You can see most of that is with other government entities. Page 7 is our accounts payable. So you can kind of see some of our vendors that we deal with that we still owe some money to that carried in from December. Page 8, that's just a listing of some more of our payable. Got about $1 million on contracts to final out. Most of those projects are just done, and we're just going through paperwork trying to final those out. Page 9, you can see our inventory. So when I say our inventories are up, that means we spent money on all those different supplies, and we have those on hand, so that can tend to help get us through some of the different weather conditions that we face in the next fiscal year. So that's always good to go into the year like that. Pages 10 and 11 are revenues and expenditures. You can see our total revenues were close to 14 million last year. We're usually in the 10 to 15 million range, and so we're on the higher end. And page 11 our expenditures were about 13.5. So we took in a little more than went out. So I always like to see that as well. So that's good. Page 12, it's a summary of our maintenance costs. So page 12 and 13, we break it out into our CASA regular system. So that's all our state aid roads outside of the municipalities. And then our CASA municipal roads, that's our state aid roads within the city limits. And then our local system, so that's all our roads numbered 101 and above. And so if you look at the local system, we spent about $1.5 million overall. And I think our property tax levy is like 1.9. So you can see the vast majority of the property tax dollars that come to our department go into the maintenance of the roads. 13, it's just gives you a little more breakdown of some of the different things that we do. And it really varies year to year. The weather is really the big driver of extra expenses or extra activities. And actually had a pretty good year last year. We had a couple really wet years, and then last year having a little drier year really helped us complete some of the projects we had going and that. So sometimes the weather is really makes a huge difference on our budget, obviously. Page 14 is just our fixed assets. So all these are the buildings that we pay for and try to keep up at about, we estimate about $3.5 million of building assets. And then the last page is a summary of all our construction contracts and everything that goes into that. So we've got, engineering, sometimes some materials, payments to the contractors. And so that totaled about $7.7 million last year. Typically we're, about 50% or more of our total budget is going to be on construction projects. And so that's what really drives our budget. If we do more projects than we have money for, you're going to see our fund balance go down, but we're going to get those collections in the next year from the state and reimbursed. But there's kind of a fine line on how much we can advance and do before we're going to get reimbursed. We only get so much money from the state. That'll carry over into the next year though, and we can get reimbursed for those projects. But when we do our annual report, it doesn't look as good because we've got some outstanding money that we haven't received. And so it's kind of, you can have some really good looking books. Some counties, they don't do very many projects and they have, a $20 million fund balance. And I've always tried to run it a little bit where the money we're collecting, we're getting it out and spending it on the roads as quick as we can. Because I don't think, the public, they want to see stuff get done. They don't care if we, we have a giant savings account. So I think that $2 million fund balance is a good number for us. I don't know if we'll be able to maintain that this year with the cuts. I'm hoping we can. But wouldn't surprise me if it goes down a little bit. So, but overall, we had a good year. If you got questions on anything that we do or the information that you want, have at it, I guess.
Ludwig will make a motion.
Did you make a motion? Was that Matt?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the report.
Accept the report.
Second.
Mark, I got a motion by Ludwig, second by Moore. Questions? And I do have a question. I believe it's page 12, or maybe it's 10. The top where it says taxes, that sales tax, is that our
Yeah, it's broken down there. We got our property tax, so that's our tax levy.
So we collected last year 1.4 million.
According to Sherry.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's the same as what Kelly says.
And
some of that is, and you can see if you go across, some of that's a prior year. So we were getting it from November and December. that happens
Okay.
every year, so it kind of equals out.
Right.
So, yeah, and if you remember, Steve, when we started that, we were projected, you know, the one thing we know about the state is when they give us projections, they're always wrong, and it's always wildly wrong, one way or the other. So we
Yeah.
were projecting about 750,000, and so we've been pretty consistent of that 1.2, 1.4, for all the years we've been collecting it, so.
Yeah, it's amazing to me because I remember last about April, thinking that thing was going to go in the tank along with the gas tax thing. Somebody's buying a lot of stuff in Pine County because that account grew.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we're a place people come to shop with Walmart and some of the other places we have, and it's kind of a nice advantage to see a lot of Wisconsin license plates over here spending their money, so that's good.
yeah, I think so. And then when you think that half of what Walmart has is not doesn't have sales tax.
Yeah.
You know, the food and the clothing, so somebody's doing okay. Anyway.
I was kind of, I seen Wright County, they collect $8.5 million for the size of that county. I mean, it's a bigger county. I mean, it's more popular. I was really shocked that, you know, so the sales tax the legislature implemented really has been a great thing for us county transportation departments. And so I'm hoping we'll come together at some point and be able to take a look at that again.
I hear that at AMC if I go to the transportation meeting, everybody would be sucking air. They didn't have that here. Even the small counties get some. Anyway, any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make a correction. I think Commissioner Waldham made this second. It wasn't me.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thanks, JJ. Clerk, want to call the roll?
Sure. District 3, Commissioner Logren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham. District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the coronavirus public health update. Sam, you're going to go ahead with that?
Yeah, sorry, my computer was lagging behind. I'm here. Hello. So just to give everybody kind of a situation update of where we're sitting with vaccines in general, because that's kind of the name of the game right now. 63% of our Pine County population over 65 have been vaccinated with at least one dose.
Sam, we lost you.
I think we lost. Let's move on, David. If she comes back, she can break in.
All right. So as everybody knows, the American Rescue Plan is now law. And the rescue plan provides $1.9 billion of relief in many, many, many different ways. And very specifically, it identifies over $60 billion that's targeted to counties and over an additional $60 billion that's targeted to cities and townships. And so the estimate for Pine County is that we will receive, I have the number somewhere, I'm not looking at it, nearly 507, no.
0.7?
Yeah, $5.7 million, which is more money than we got in the CARES Act, And so it's a significant amount of money. It's going to come in 2 tranches. The first tranche as early as within 60 days, and the second tranche a year later. And so we have the opportunity, and I think the obligation, to really put thought into what are the goals of this funding? What does the county board want to accomplish? And we have until December 31st, 2024. So this is not like the FAST grant program where we have to get money out the door by the end of the month. This is long-term, sustainable. How do we remake the economic structure of Pine County so that businesses and the communities can recover? And so to that end, in looking at the county board's goals for 2021, economic development is at the top. We used to have an economic developer part-time. And so I am just putting out the idea that potentially it might be time to consider recruiting again for an economic development coordinator. And I was thinking full-time, although I didn't clarify that in the request, but certainly any time, whether it's full-time or part-time, would be an asset. And I know Don Hickman is on the call. He and the Initiative Foundation have been a partner with us in all of the business relief we have done previously. And so whatever we do going forward, I would think that we would want to continue to engage the Initiative Foundation as a way to provide targeted business relief. So thoughts, questions?
Well, my thought is we felt bad when we lost our part-time economic development coordinator. I personally thought we saw some gains. We didn't replace that person because we were in a money crunch, like we always are, kind of, and thought there was really more than a part-time job available. And when we went through our strategic plan and we looked at economic development and broadband development as 2 of our top goals, we've really started trudging down the broadband deployment path right now. I think they go hand in hand, and so I would this money can hang around for a while. So I believe we've got until the end of 2023. Is that right, David?
I believe it's 2024.
2024 to spend it all. So, and much like these COP grants we've gotten in the past, where we get a grant to pay for a new COP for 1 year, and then we have to pick up the slack ourselves on the other end after that, if we so desire. This gives us 3.5 or more years to see what the impact might be. And it's everything I can see, it fits directly in the guidance of what they're sending the money for. So I think we have an open position. We just haven't filled it. I would say we start recruiting for that. This is my opinion. So I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what everybody else thinks.
Well, this is Lovegreen. I think it's one way that we're going to accomplish the goals that we set at the beginning of the year. So I think it's important.
Thank you, Terry.
This is Commissioner Moore. I agree with that, and we've been talking about this for a long time. This gives us an opportunity to rehire or re-get this position back going and start moving forward with everything we need to do. So
I think if if we have a consensus, I think if somebody wanted to make, I don't know how Matt and JJ feel, but I think the sooner we get started, the sooner we're going to see some help. And I think our road to economic redevelopment coming out of this pandemic is going to be somebody that we can point to. And I'm going to just give one example. I had a owner of the Sand Lake Resort get a hold of me. I've talked to him a couple times. He's got some ambitious, great plans to do something. And to me, it's a housing project. It's a business project. We need somebody that we can point to and say, sit down with this guy, get him pointed in the right direction for all the things that he needs to do to help make that a successful endeavor. And sometimes they're successful and sometimes they're not, but we don't have anybody we can point to say, you need to call.
Mr. Chair, I support it. As Commissioner Ludwig, I support it also. You know what, we have a good committee going on broadband, and I think that's going to keep moving, and I completely support anything we can do to get our economy, our local economic development happen.
You said there was a position previously in the county for this
Yes.
type of, there was.
Yeah.
Was there it was full-time?
No, what we did when a guy named Robert Musgrove retired from the technical college, he had done a lot of work with the college in economic development, and so I chatted with him, and we were on the verge of trying to do something, and we talked him into, we paid him a stipend, and got some good work out of him. But then he was originally from Texas, and they decided to permanently retire in Texas. So we lost him, never refilled the position. So I think if it would be cleaner if somebody made a motion and to proceed. I don't think we could do it other ways, but it'd just be, I'd feel better if we had a motion on moving ahead with.
This is Commissioner Moore. I'll make that motion.
Lefgren will second that.
Got a motion by Moore, seconded by Lovegren, to move ahead with the recruitment of a economic development position. We do have a job description left over from before. We might have to take a look at that, but I think the sooner. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment, I believe based on the legislation that we could fund this position with the American Rescue Act money, except for the portion that would be the para contribution, because the law has a specific exclusion for pension contributions, and so there would be 7.5% of the salary that we would have to make up locally. And just so I wanted to make everyone aware of that little clause.
What are we going to have established for salary and recruitment?
So we do have an established salary range. It's a grade 12, which would make the range $60,299 to $78,395 on an annual basis. I did check with some of our neighbors, and unfortunately that range is behind, I think, our neighbors are offering. so Aiken County's position is vacant because their incumbent retired recently, but they are planning to refill their range. Goes from 60,000 up to 89,000. Mille Lacs County has a person in the position now. Their range is from 68,000 to 87,000. And then Kanabec has a incumbent in their position. They're actually paying 91,600 today. So our range at, you know, up to 78,000 is behind all of our neighbors. But I don't know if that means we should see if we can recruit somebody, or if we need to evaluate our range before we do that. I guess I would think at this point we could go out and recruit and see what we get, before we have to offer more money.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think this would give authorization to go ahead and start the process. Any other questions?
Other than the American Rescue Act funded, so there's provisions in that Rescue Act that, I mean, this would be funded for how long? If a person's
4
employed
years
for
till the end of 2024, JJ, and then we'd have to determine if we wanted to continue doing it based on results.
3.5 by the time we get.
And so the only caveat that I can offer is if you look in the packet on the agenda request on the second page, it has those numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 in the middle of the page. Those are the specific items called out in the legislation. The Treasury Department is tasked with writing the actual guidance. But when you read number 1, and I've reached out to AMC and also to some of my colleague administrators with regard to interpreting number 1 to respond to the public health emergency, including assistance to households, small business, nonprofits, or aid to impacting industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. And there seems to be a consensus that that would mean that you could pay somebody to implement these things out of the funds that are in the Recovery Act.
Wouldn't you go with number 3 also for the provisions of government services to extend the reduction in revenue?
That is actually, I think, targeted to backfill shortfalls. So many units of government have seen less tax revenue as a result of the pandemic. And I'm going to tie this back to Mark's comment on the gas tax, where I think this is the provision that we should reach out to our state legislators and encourage them to consider using some of the state money that they'll get under the act to backfill the shortfall in the gas tax, because that would be direct aid to transportation, bridges, and highways, which we know is critically important to sustaining the economy, especially in rural Minnesota.
I see broadband is spelled out directly in there.
Yes, and there is, outside of the money for local government, there is $10 billion identified for broadband. And so having an economic development coordinator, I think, will help us understand and align all of these resources that are coming down the pipe. So did that answer your question, JJ?
Yeah, and then would it be, so you're just looking at this job would run the term of just the 3.5 years or 4 years?
My thought is that during that period of time, we would evaluate the formation of either an EDA or a combined HRA EDA, which I know we had talked about back when Robert was in the position, and when he left, that just got dropped. But I think long term, we would look to try to find a way to sustain the position and create a more robust economic development infrastructure by having either an EDA or a combined EDA HRA.
I guess what I'm trying to say is we're going into this as like it's a temporary position that would be reevaluated.
Yeah.
After the funds run out. Yeah.
I think that would be a fair assessment, JJ,
Okay.
that we have, one of the reasons we haven't funded this position is because we haven't wanted to raise the levy enough to fund the position. And so,
Right.
if we see some great results, maybe we can find an avenue to continue to fund the position through an HRA or an EDA, which has different levers to pull for funding.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Don Hickman is on the call, and I know he works with many communities in the region and has worked with us very closely. I wonder if we want to invite him, if he has any thoughts or comments on the direction we're going.
With your permission, Mr. Chair, Don Hickman from the Initiative Foundation.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I was chatting with David and just noted that counties that have EDA staff tend to submit and receive grants from us more often. We just form that line of communication and familiarity that we get better proposals and understand your needs better. So not that will offset the cost of standing up a position, but I'm very excited to hear that you'll return it. Administrator Minke's worked terribly hard this year to reestablish a really deep relationship with us. But frankly, if you look at our grant making to you since Dr. Musgrove left, it's not as robust as it had been when he was here. And Mr. Chair, you already made this point, but as you enter into the land and broadband program, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for you to accomplish two things you've long wanted to do. They are perfectly paired with one another. And even if all you accomplish in that 3.5 years is that businesses that exist in Pine County have access to broadband and understand how to capitalize on that, and you attract new investment into the county, that's a heck of a good outcome. And if the position proves it can pay for itself, that it's worth the investment, you can make that decision 3.5 years from now. So very excited by your action today.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could, please.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the gentleman up at Sand Lake also reached out to me, and I guess one thing I would just like to let everyone know that hasn't heard. It seems like his biggest challenge right now is the DNR and what he's allowed to do there. He has like 29 or was it 39 units, and the DNR's involvement says if he wants to rebuild or grow, he actually has to lower those units to just 9. Which is huge. Yeah, I mean, if you were a logger and you had 12 logging trucks, you wanted to expand, and the state steps in and says, "Well, now you can expand, but you have to do it with only 2 trucks." That's not expanding. I just believe there's a lot of overreach there, and I would just like to see as much enthusiasm for our involvement to help him out with these obstacles. With the DNR, his challenge there, as I also do agree of this position. Yes, this would be great, and this would help him also. But there's a lot of other things going on up there that are really putting a squeeze on him. And if you look at the history of the DNR, they've done nothing but grow since their start, and grow by buying less trucks and making smaller facilities. But it's just what they're trying to do to this business owner, I think, is really, really putting a squeeze on them. And I know with my business experience, I've grown, I've built, I've expanded, and you don't need government in your way trying to stop you. You do have rules. You do have to watch the environment. We all know that. I think he's been from what I understand, a great steward of the environment up there on that lake. DNR has been involved with that lake forever. That lake has its problems with. It's one of the milfoil lakes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they've been helping for how many years, and you still have that at the lake. So that's all I had to say. Yeah, I support this. but he needs help with the DNR also. I just hope we can reach out and do whatever we can to help with that.
We'll continue to do what we can, JJ. I understand his plight, and anyway, well, any other questions? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lofgren.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, folks. We'll move ahead on that, David, and see where we can go before we meet again.
Thank you.
Sam, are you back able to communicate with us?
I jumped on my phone. Ryan said you can see
Okay.
me now.
Yep.
Fabulous. Sorry. I don't know what happened. I was on the good internet even.
We got to the 63% over 65, and then you froze.
And then I disappeared. So yeah, the goal the governor set was 70%, and we're still slowly over 65 people to kind of trickle in as they decide, okay, now I'm ready for it. So I feel really good about 63% so far. That's really promising. Our total overall population vaccinated is sitting right around 21% have had one dose. So
21?
that's really 21%. Yep. Of Pine County people. And really the state has been ramping up doses really recently. We didn't get a ton this week because they're really working on food processors this week, which is very southern economy piece with like meat packing plants and things like that. But we're hoping in the following weeks that we'll see more doses coming to us, more doses coming to our partners in the community, and we'll just see this continue to increase. So far, by the end of this week, Pine County Public Health will have administered 2,900 first doses. That doesn't even count our second doses. So a month from now, we'll have given double that in first and second doses. So it's been a wild ride, but it's been really successful. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback about our clinics and how well run they are. They're easy to get through. They're complicated with 7 wayfinders pointing your way, like you'll see down in the cities. So they're a little bit calmer, easier to get through. People really have an easy time getting through them, and our nurses are lovely all the time. We do have partners in the community vaccinating, so we're not the only town. Wellia is vaccinating. Essentia Sandstone is vaccinating. They don't get a ton of doses, but they do get some. Thrifty White, both of them, and Walmart are all receiving some amount of doses every week. So if you can't get in with us, reach out to one of those partners and they can hopefully get in. The governor expanded facilities. Quite a few people are eligible now. So there's plenty to go around of people, not doses. Our schools are also.
Sam, how do you get, people can get a shot at the VA, at Wellia, at Essentia, and how do you get, did that go into a statewide database then, and they put their county of residency, and then it spits it back to you? Is that how that works?
So yep, what happens is every person who administers the vaccine by law, or we are told that we have to upload it into a system called MIC. It's Minnesota Immunization something connector. I don't remember it's a statewide database. And upload within 24 hours every time we give a dose. Everybody else is supposed to do that. And then you put the address in there. It's not a perfect system. Some addresses aren't right. My record still shows me in St. Paul. Is what it is. So it's not perfect, but it gives a really good approximation of numbers. And then, the state runs all that data on their end and then spits back out a list of Pine County, Olmsted County, Ramsey County percentages and numbers. So it's done on the state level and then it trickles back down to. So lots of data.
Thank you.
If anybody's curious, lots of data on mn.gov/vaccine. Other than that, so if anybody wants to come to us to get vaccinated, we have two paths to get connected with us. One is to call our hotline and they'll talk you through things. The other simpler way, if you have internet, is just go onto the Maine County website. A little pop-up box pops up saying interested in being vaccinated. Takes you to a page, walks you through how you're going to fill out an eligibility form, determine if you're eligible. If you are, we get your info. And once we have doses and we schedule a clinic, we send you an email saying, hey, you said you're interested. Here's, click this link to sign up. So it helps reduce the number of people who are from like Edina and Eden Prairie who come up, because we can see what city they're from because we ask what they live in. And we try and target Pine County or relatively nearby, Mora, that's fine, to get them in first. And then if we happen to have extra doses, then we're like, okay, you're Forest Lake, come on in. But we're really trying to focus on getting Pine County done first. No good. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thoughts?
More questions for Sam? We'll work on your broadband connection.
I know. Thanks.
David, did you have anything else on the Recovery Act?
Just to add that there's new information all the time on the implementation. And then also there's significant money that's targeted to cities and townships. And so we'll be, actively working with our other partners in Pine County to roll these funds out.
Little nugget that I just, Commissioner Holland, you emailed me saying to remind you to talk about the volunteer drivers.
Yep, and I got it on my list next.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah.
I actually sent myself a reminder. We will move to the legislative update, which Sam, you can stay on, but one of the things I was alerted by the Council on Aging folks is this volunteer driver system that we have is if people get reimbursed for mileage at the federal rate and they drive and they get issued a 1099, then they're of course taxed on it, and then some insurance companies are saying, well, you're doing that for business, so we gotta insure you as a business. And you go, I'm just helping my neighbor. And then somebody heard me do that and got me this, and I had the time, so I made 25 trips to Abbott and I made 26 trips to St. Cloud, and I got $700. I'm not a business. And so there's some legislation. David, did you send that out so everybody's got the bill numbers?
Oh, I did not send it out, but there are 4 bills, 2 in the House and 2 in the Senate. And so I can do that after the meeting.
Okay. But it might behoove us as commissioners to reach out to our representatives and senators and say, this is one of the ways that we can help people stay in their homes, is somebody needs a ride someplace. And if they're in the right program, they can get reimbursed for that mileage at the federal rate. And so they're not businesses. They're just helping somebody. So does anybody have any questions on that? I'm not the world's expert on it by any means, but I do know that it's something we've talked about in the past. It has come up, has affected people in Pine County. Anyway,
So, Mr. Chair,
We
I
have
have a
any-
couple more
Yes.
legislative updates.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
Friday is the second committee deadline. So by Friday, any bill that is to be considered alive needs to have had a hearing in both the House and the Senate. Although we know there's always workarounds and things can be added on the floor. There is a piece of legislation, HF 1914, that would give additional business relief funding to counties to distribute, much like we did recently with the state funds that we sent out to businesses. So we could potentially be getting some additional funds that would need to be distributed by May 31st. And so that would just be something that might be of great benefit to our businesses. SF 1432 deals with the state property tax on commercial industrial properties. And so it is a rebate of those taxes. And so I think the downside of that is it's retroactive and they would have to apply to counties. Counties would make the rebate and then somehow we would have to, as a county, then get reimbursed from the state. And so I think we chalk that one up as a good idea to reduce business, commercial industrial taxes, but it's a very labor intensive process to do that from the county's perspective. And then Sunday is the governor's State of the State address, if you're interested in tuning into that. I think it's in the evening, like 6 o'clock, maybe.
I think you're right.
That commercial business tax isn't a result of that lawsuit, is it?
No, this is just a,
Separate.
yeah, this is just business relief that some legislators are trying to get through.
Any other stuff on legislative? If not, we'll move on to commissioner reports. I got a bunch of them here. Central Minnesota Council on Aging. We met again. Talked a little bit about this volunteer driver. Food support is continues to be hard on people, and chore, during the pandemic, people that were relying on chore services have been struggling. So hopefully that can come back. East Central Solid Waste, we had a short meeting to pay the bills, and then we had a meeting about deer carcasses. Matt dialed in for that. We had probably one of the best presentations I've ever seen from a lady that works for the DNR. She's a scientist and really framed up CWD really, really well, don't you think, Matt?
Yeah, so she was awesome.
Yeah.
And the science was amazing to me.
Yeah.
Trying to find my.
And then we had a couple of people from PCA, and then of course we had somebody from the Deer Hunters Association and some extra county commissioners, including Matt, and Nathan Nelson was also on the call. We have kind of given ourselves a self-imposed deadline of coming up with the answer of what we should and can do in East Central Minnesota for deer carcasses, because they found a deer, a couple, 3-4 deer with CWD in a captive environment in southern Pine County. So of course we're on the radar screen for that. So anyway, the long and the short of it is the facility that we use is a joint owned facility, but the host county, Canadian County, says they don't want deer carcasses coming into their county. So we don't have any answer yet. We're just in the fact finding portion. So deer hunting is is a huge business. If you want to look at it as a business, it's a huge business in Pine County, as it is other counties surrounding us. And so we're trying to come up with what do we do with these deer carcasses? We don't want CWD in Pine County in our wild herd ever. So we want to be diligent in what we're doing and what's the best way to take care of deer carcasses. One of the best ways we can find out is in the lined landfill. But we only have one lined landfill within 5 county area. So how are we going to handle that? We'll figure it out. So if you have any suggestions, let me know and I'll bring them up. This will be on our agenda until we come up with the answer that'll work for everybody.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Was there any further, I had to bail at the end of it. Was there any further discussion just starting conversation with the incinerating of the carcasses?
Yes.
That model they talked about?
The PCA is going to come back with some recommended kinds of incinerators and pricing, ranges and what it costs to operate them, and do we need one in every county? Are they they're going to come back with those kind of recommendations.
Thank you.
Ideas. Yep.
Mr. Chair, I just got one quick question.
Yep.
Is the host county willing to take their own deer carcasses or not?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
They just don't want to. And I can kind of understand it, Josh, but the staff at the landfill has assured that they come over in a dumpster, they will dig a hole and they will get covered immediately. There's no chance of them getting drug around by a coyote or something. So the other thing that was pointed out is, do you know how many deer carcasses came in here last year? Because people phoned out their own deer and stuck in a black garbage can or whatever color bag and stuck it in their trash. We don't know that. I mean, people have to do something with them. So we'll figure it out. Regional library.
We met, we paid bills. They are working on a new grant that does self-service, where you can go in there after hours when there's not anybody working, kind of like going to a fitness center. They're looking at doing it in Hinckley, because you've got the city administrators right there, the sheriff's office is right there, just, in case there are issues as a pilot, to see if it's something that they want to continue. People from other towns can utilize it. But right now we're asking for more information from other counties that have been live to find out if they have any issues or what to look for with that. That was it. And then I'll go on to the coalition.
Yep.
Okay. Coalition, we are kind of at a standstill trying to figure out where it's going to go. We had been awarded the grant, the PI grant, and it expires on June 30th. With that, we're not going to have the funds to continue doing what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is utilize the funds that we do have to get some more billboards ready to go, get some radio ads ready to go. If people want training, we can get that going. So that's kind of where that's at. There is another grant that's available. The problem with that grant is that it's a 50% match. For the P&I grant that we've had, there was no match that was included with that. So we've got a couple of situations. One is that Health and Human Services jumps in with both feet, and they do the majority or a lot of the work that goes with this coalition. And they're so busy right now that they don't have the time to look at doing a grant. So they're not willing to do it. So it's going to be coming up with somebody who would be willing to do the grant work. and then to figure out where the 50% matching funds are gonna come from. So, you know, right now it's just trying to figure out where things are gonna go from here. Reese, I see you out there. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
Thanks, Commissioner. No, I think you covered it fairly well. Becky and I have been talking about possibly doing, maybe hiring somebody to facilitate a session into future planning of what to do with it. There is, although we don't have that substantial grant, we do get some funds from the courts, and then trying to figure out what we should do with that money going forward.
Thank you.
Other than that, we did talk about how the Mille Lacs Band has not participated for a while, and there was an invite put out to them after we met with the Mille Lacs Band. And so we may be having somebody from the band joining the committee. And we did just get a new member, Carly Anderson, from a certain recovery center here in Sandstone.
Okay. And we did meet with the Mille Lacs Band. We've met twice now in the last couple of months. So we did meet the other day. Didn't have a big agenda, but we are getting to know each other again, and so we will continue to meet. Becky Foss, you might be invited to the next meeting. We're going to talk about some HHS issues, and well, David and Jamie Edwards are putting together that agenda. Is that fair, Terry?
Yep, that was good.
All right. Jack Freebie from Congressman Stauber's office met with Josh and I and David last week. So, and Kelly was there also. Josh, I remember the one thing he kept saying is we're going to throw a lot of money at broadband. Jokingly said, Congressman Stauber didn't vote for the bill, but we're going to spend the money. So,
yeah, that's the biggest thing I got. Well, I didn't realize that's what the whole meeting was going to be about, was the broadband, but that's what it was. Is he goes, they got a lot of money and they don't want to see it burned up in the urban area. They want to see rural America, especially Congressman Stauber's district, to get as much as they possibly can out of this. So we got a lot of good stuff out of it. Some connections, we're going to try to leverage them. Some, I don't know if you want to say, quote, promises. I don't know if they're promises or hopefully promises that to try to get some contact going forward. But I do believe with this Blandon stuff we got going on, with this economic development position, you know, it probably ain't going to come fast enough, but I think there's a lot of exciting stuff going forward here. So,
Mr. Chair, if I could just add to Josh's comments, I think the specific ask that we gave to Jack was to have the Congressman's office try to help facilitate meetings between local government and the providers. And some of the incumbent providers are not easy to meet with, and they are not very forthcoming with what their plans are and how they're going to use the federal money that they've gotten.
Can I add to that, Mr. Chair?
yep.
So I've been doing some of the NACO meetings and sitting in on what they're doing. And so military, and I did the military veterans, the healthcare, and then technology and communications so far. And then there's a whole bunch coming up on broadband. But every single one of those committees, that's what they're pushing is broadband. And they're pushing that the counties be active in the federal and the state levels on deciding what's going to happen with this money and the grants and everything, because they know that the counties are the one that know what's going on, and that, you know, it's the boots on the ground that will be able to help determine how to do the best thing with that. So it's big discussion as broadband on everywhere you went.
Yes, you are correct. That's why I'm really glad that we're involved in this plan thing, and that what do we have? 20 people that said they're going to take part in it from across. Soil and water. Anybody get there?
Yes. Yeah. One of the big things was Russ Hyatt spoke. He's from Carleton County, and he's been talking a lot about his work with the SWCDs and the legislation that's been going on with himself, and he's been getting a lot of help from Nelson and Rare both. I was asked again by some residents up on the lake, Sturgeon Lake mainly, about the high water situation, and there are just some concerns with the spring thaw that's coming. And I asked SWCD if anyone has reached out to them yet, and they had said no. And I guess I was wondering if the DNR or Bowser or anybody has been trying to get anything going to address the issues up there. And there was nothing. I don't know if anybody at the county level there, any other commissioners have heard anything, or if Dave had heard anything. Anybody calling with any concerns of the flooding and high water along the lake properties there?
We did hear about it last fall, and is there a lake association there?
Yeah, there's the Sturgeon, Windermere.
Yeah, I thought they were going to contact Soil and Water because it's probably the agency that needs to take the lead on it.
Yeah, somebody testified this week on it.
Yeah. So I just asked again because I'm hearing about it, but if they're not going through the proper steps, I guess I'll just get back to the homeowners of concern and just again encourage them that they have to reach out, and then of course I'll see what I can do to help out also. One big thing I guess that they talked about, and it sounds like they reached out to you, Dave, and Reese, was the question of their comp time versus overtime with the soil and water. And it sounds like that between Dave and Reese, they're working to address that. And that's it.
All right. Thanks. Central Minnesota Jobs and Training, we had a meeting Friday. Of course, the focus is to get everybody back to work, and that's going to be the focus for a while. Rural counties is exactly at the same time as Jobs and Training, so I didn't get there. Lakes and Pines, we met yesterday. Fuel assistance has been we approved a bunch of grants, but I think we got, everybody was a little bit screwed up with, there's some staffing issues at Lakes and Pines, and I heard about some people that couldn't get fuel assistance because they were on the list apparently, and the list, when it's 20 below out and you don't have fuel in your tank, it doesn't matter what list you're on, you need to get fuel. And anyway, Lakes and Pines have really got behind last fall, and they played catch up all winter long, and probably just now are getting caught up when it's not critical. But anyway, that's about it. Anything else? The other thing under updates is I have heard from some commissioners that the Second Amendment, people keep rattling their cage. And so we had a discussion about a year ago about it, and then it kind of died down, and we had determined that, you know, we have taken an oath already to uphold the Constitution, which in my mind is good enough, but there is some language floating around from the County Attorneys Association and AMC, and so I would like to put that in a committee. Here's my plan. It'd go to committee, it'd come out of committee, it'd go to the committee of the whole, and if we come up with something we can all live with, then it would come back to the board. I don't think it's something that needs to be done next week, or I just think it's something we need to move forward with and give it its due diligence. We have some of the things I have read give me pause, because we have people that have, our child protection people, for instance, have to give a report that the child is living in a safe house. What does that mean if the guns aren't locked up in a safe, or whatever? I don't know. But that's what we would find out in committee. 2 committee stops that we'll go to. I've asked Matt to serve on a committee with me, and we will get together with Reese and David and take a look at what we can do. And if you get phone calls, you can say that's what we're doing, if that's all right. If anybody has any comments about it?
Mr. Chair, I do. I have some comments, and I think all the commissioners received an email from Garrity. I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but then I ended up getting a number of phone calls at home too. And I do remember last spring when we had to push same thing. And I think we were close to maybe doing something then. I'm not sure, but I know we talked about it. And I think COVID got in the way there too and slowed things down. And
yeah,
so, and just with the recent uptick, I'm happy to sit on that committee with you. And I think with Reese, and we can carefully draft our own resolution. But I will reinforce what you said. When the people have called me, I've just said, you know, the county board is limited in what we can do. And we do take an oath that we absolutely have to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Minnesota. And we will. But they want us to say that in a public, I keep being that, well, we'll work something through there, but we're certainly not going to put ourselves out in a position where we would end up in some crazy litigation trouble or whatever. Well, who knows? But, you know, I haven't read all the other resolutions, and I'm sure they're careful also there. So, thank you for the opportunity to say that.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
I'm glad that we're going to move forward with this. I think that there's a lot of fear in people that own guns with what's going on with the federal government right now. And I think that it's a peace of mind that people will have if we stand up and say that we will support them. So I'm glad that we're moving forward to see where we can go from here.
That's right. Good.
Anything else under updates? You see the meetings, I have not seen, the township officers meeting is March
27th
27th
at 9.
at 9 o'clock at the community, it's not at the Legion Club, it's at the, they call it Community Center in Hinkley.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. That worked well last fall. I went, They had people spread out really well, and I could even hear in there. So that's the only additions I have on there. Anybody else have anything?
You know, I do.
Yeah.
I did the graduation for the welding class at Pine
Oh,
Tech.
yes. Thank you.
Which was really cool. But the thing that was, and maybe you guys already knew this and it just dawned on me that day, but they got a grant also, and they're going to be continuing those classes because it was such a phenomenal success. And so I just, again, want to say that what an amazing way to help our communities to grow and to just reach different limits, and that they're going to be able to continue that is amazing.
I think that's, I wish we could tell that to every legislator, state and federal, tell that story about what we did with a small portion of CARES Act money that is it's gonna change people's lives forever, and it's gonna continue. It was an experiment that Pine Tech has wanted to try for a while, but didn't have the funds to do it. And now they had the funds. We funneled some of the money they applied. We had very little to do with it other than saying, yeah, we can fund that. And I think it's just been a wonderful program for them.
Yep.
So, anything else? If not, thanks for a great meeting, and we'll declare the meeting adjourned. You have
See you,
stuff
everyone.
ready to sign, Debbie?
Everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.
Careful on the roof, JJ.
I will.
Stay warm, JJ.
Yeah.
Are you good? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna be part of it, aren't you? Maybe.
Sounds like it.
That's good.
Which one second?
Debbie, do you have stuff to sign?
See you guys. Take care.
I'll be in.
Me too. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
But yeah, they've had there's a petition going around, and I was